In Movies and Money, something is going horribly wrong at the box office. Let's check in now with movie man Erik Childress. Hello to you, Erik.
Hi, Angie.
The horror genre has failed to scare up big box office numbers so far this year. This weekend, The Invisible Man goes live on the big screen. Take a look.
He said that wherever I went, he would find me, walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him.
Adrian is dead.
He's not dead. He has figured out a way to be invisible.
Erik, you believe The Invisible Man could bring some good energy to this year's bad horror scene.
Well, that's right, Angie. And this weekend, there's only one major release opening, and that is Leigh Whannell's The Invisible Man. Now, some may remember Universal attempting to reinvent their classic monster movie line into what they called the Dark Universe. That immediately crashed and burned after The Mummy with Tom Cruise failed to turn a profit. But some projects were not entirely scrapped and will be appearing at some point on the schedule, just not without connecting to one another. The first and easily most intriguing of the bunch is the film opening this weekend. Whannell is one of the people who helped create both the Saw and Insidious horror franchises with his friend James Wan, and he went on to direct the third chapter of the latter as well as a sci-fi film called Upgrade that has developed a bit of a following. But this approach to the classic Lon Chaney film is very interesting indeed and is getting some stellar reviews. It stars the great Elizabeth Moss as a woman in an abusive relationship who is made to believe her husband is dead, only for her to become convinced that he continues to terrorize her after becoming invisible. There is so much potential to unpack here, and it seems pretty clear that audiences should believe her trauma. They may remember Paul Verhoeven did a variation on this concept with Kevin Bacon in Hollow Man, which unfortunately kind of lived up to its title. This one reminds me more of Steven Soderbergh's Unsane from a few years ago, which also involved a woman in a mental facility that could not convince anyone her stalker was there. Now, this film has real breakout potential for the genre, though based on how it's been so far this year, its number one finish is likely, comparatively, to look a lot like a Marvel movie.
How horribly is the horror genre doing this year, and why do you think that's happening?
Well, it never seems to be just one thing, Angie. One could certainly point to a saturation of the market this year, as almost every week has produced a new horror movie. And as loyal as that fan base can be, there is also a been there, done that variable looking at the reboot of the Grudge franchise or last week's tepid showing for Brahms' The Boy 2. Folks also tend to stay away when reviews are just flat out bad, as they were for Fantasy Island and The Turning, neither of which reached 15% at Rotten Tomatoes from critics. Then again, there has been some mildly positive reactions to the Kristen Stewart sci-fi monster film Underwater, as well as Oz Perkins' unique take on Gretel and Hansel. None of these films managed to gross $25 million, though Fantasy Island may still squeak over that. Compare that to 2019, when there were certainly some very high-profile horror films like Us and It Chapter 2, but also successful franchise starters like Escape Room and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Now, there are only 4 films I would label as horror that grossed less than $25 million in all of last year. 2020 has had 4 already.
Aside from The Invisible Man this weekend, are there any horror films on the horizon you believe will be attractive to fans and film critics?
Well, we're just 3 weeks away from A Quiet Place Part 2, which is an easy candidate given that the original grossed over $188 million domestically. Now, a film that I'm certainly curious about is Run, which opens in May and was directed by Anish Chaganty, who made one of the bigger Sundance hits in recent years, the missing persons thriller Searching with John Cho. In June, we get the new remake of Candyman, which, like most remakes, we probably did not need, but this one is being produced by Jordan Peele, so expectations are certainly high. And speaking of terrific horror directors, James Wan returns with Malignant in August, a month before the third chapter of the Conjuring films opens in September, which he did not direct this time. Then finally, there are high expectations also in September for Last Night in Soho, which was directed by Edgar Wright, who gave us Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and Baby Driver, and was co-written by Krysty Wilson-Cairns, who co-wrote the recent World War I film 1917. I think all of these films are going to do better than what we have seen so far this year.
Thank you, Erik. I might have to sleep with the lights on after this hit, but thanks for being here.
Thank you, Angie.
For more Business First AM, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.